Hey, good morning. Welcome to Donald Lawrence Adventures. One of the things we do a lot of, we do gold panning. You've seen the videos on our channel. The take is pretty good. I think we do better than average. I've had people, come up to me when we're out gold panning and prospecting and ask how they can get started, how they can find gold. So today I'm going to tell you and talk to you about the 4 steps you need to take when gold panning to be successful right from the beginning. Number 1, you need to understand how the gold got there. Why is the gold in the area? North Saskatchewan River, for example, has got gold all up and down the banks. It erodes out of the banks and it gets dropped in certain spots where it accumulates, and that's where Lana and I try to target. So understand how the gold got there. Why is it there? That's step number 1. Step number 2, you have to identify and read a river on where the gold will accumulate. Rivers are windy, and there are certain spots that they accumulate on the inside bank. We'll talk about that a little further in the video, and I'll go more into depth on how that works. That's number 2. Number 3, once you've identified where you think the gold is going to be, once you get down to the riverbank, figuring out exactly where to dig and start prospecting is important too. You can dig here for gold on a bank and get absolutely nothing, and then go and be as far over as this or even this close and get more gold. You have to understand why the gold is landing there and accumulating in riverbank. Read the riverbank and understand why. I'll talk in depth about that today. Number 4, learn how to use a gold pan. Today I'm going to show you how to gold pan in North Saskatchewan River. Here we have flower gold. It's very different than on a lot of other channels. You watch channels, like guys like Dan Hurd. In his, he pans a certain way. He has a certain way of doing it, and it is very, very effective for the type of gold he's after. Here we're after flower gold. You have to pan differently, and I'm going to talk about that. And panning is essential in gold work. Even if, we have a high banker, before I go out and use a high banker, I will test pan an area with gold pans and decide whether I'm going to haul the equipment in there and try it or not. It's the fundamental basics are understand why the gold is there, learn how to read a river, where to look on the riverbank when you get there, and number 4, how to use your gold pan. Whether you're just somebody starting out, you bought your first kit this morning, you want to give it a shot, or you're a multi-billion-dollar gold mining operation, it all starts and begins with a pan. You do your test panning, figure out where the gold is, identify where you want to dig, focus on that, and then when you're all said and done, you can go back in after you've done some testing, test your tailings, see if you're capturing all the gold you want. So it starts and it begins with a gold pan. Anyway, stay tuned. I'm going to talk on each step a little more depth. And thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Fundamental number 1 of the 4 fundamentals on how to find gold today. You have to understand how the gold got to where you are. There's gold all over the world. People find it in Arizona, California, Brazil. It's everywhere. It's all come down deep down from the earth, come up through volcanic activity, and gets deposited, and then it gets eroded and gets dispersed throughout the world. That's basically how gold gets everywhere. In Alberta, what happened is again, it came up through volcanic activity and dispersed in certain key areas throughout Alberta. And then there was the Ice Age. In the last Ice Age, the glacier came down like a big plow and just plowed up Alberta and ground up all the gold and made it very, very fine and just dropped it in a thin layer as it melted everywhere. And then, of course, dirt over the years, earth fills up over top of it, and then rivers like the North Saskatchewan here erode that out. And as it erodes it, it erodes the fine gold out of the banks and off the bottom and drops it in certain areas. So in Alberta, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for flower gold, and you're trying to figure out along riverbanks where the optimal spot for the flower gold to be dropped out of the river and accumulate is. That's basic number 1 for finding more gold in Alberta. Fundamental number 2, how to read a river. Gold is deposited basically the same way in all rivers. It travels downstream with the fast currents in the spring, and as the river drops, it makes deposits. The thing to understand is rivers are windy. They wind like this, go straight, they wind, whatever. North Saskatchewan River is very windy. And what you want to look for is you want to find a curve in the river, and you want to be on the inside part of the curve, okay? For example, here, the river is coming around this way. We're on the inside of a curve coming around this way here, and we're just at the apex of the curve. And the apex of the curve is really a good place to start looking for the gold. The gold will drop out of the river first on the inside curve than it will on the outside curve because of the speed the water is traveling. Think about it like the hub of a bicycle, okay? If you look at a wheel of a bicycle, in the middle there's the hub, and on the outside there is the wheel. It's all rotating the same amount of rotations per minute. But if you look on the outside, the track, because it has a longer where to go, goes slower. It doesn't travel as fast. And you get closer to the middle where the hub is, to cover the same thing, it has to go extremely fast. Same principle as when people are, on foot races in the Olympics. They have a staggered start for that reason. When they're running on the inside of the curve is shorter on the inside than on the outside, and to compensate it, they stagger off. So as the water comes around the bend here, it's going slower over there than it is over here, and it's going faster. And gold likes to travel in the faster water. It's heavy. It's about 40 times heavier than any other material in the water as far as density goes. So it will travel with the fastest water, and as the water slows down, it'll drop. And as it goes in inside banks, everything drops out of it. Gravels, rocks, all that kind of stuff. And where it drops out, it makes ripples and different waves. You get these beautiful little waves. You see them go back, they turn on each other and things. And as the water goes over a rock, and it creates a lower density, air gets underneath the water, and that makes it lighter. So the gold will drop out through that air pocket and land in the bottom of the river. And if it's sheltered behind something like a rock or a gravel or a big stone or whatever, it'll stay there. And then it gets buried by black sands or whatever, and it just kind of hangs there. And as the waters recede, that's how it drops out of the river and gets there. Okay? So that's, fundamental number 2. Learn how to read your river. You want to be on a curve. You want to be on the inside bank of the curve, and because that's where the gold's going to go. And you want to try and picture as you're looking down. Well, I'll talk about that. I'll talk about targeting where in the bank in a minute when we get down to the bank, and hopefully I'll find what I'm expecting to find there. I mean, right here, I've read this river. We haven't been down to the bank yet. I fully expect when I walk to the edge of this bluff, I'm going to look down, and I'm going to see a gravel bar about, 30 or 40, 60 feet wide, about 10 feet wide, about 60 feet long, and it's going to be hard-packed gravel. That's what I'm looking for. That's why I expect to find in this spot. That's why I came here, because I understand how the river works, and that's how it should drop it on the North Saskatchewan River, or any river really, but specifically in North Saskatchewan because that's where I'm the most experienced. So there you go. Fundamental number 2, understand the river and how gold travels on the river. Okay, so basic step number 3, where to look for gold in the river. As I talked about earlier in step number 2, or basics number 2, when I look over the edge of this bank, I expect to see a gravel bar that's going to be about, anywhere from 30 to 60 feet long and about 10 feet wide of compressed gravel. Let's find out if I know what I'm talking about or if I'm full of, you know what. There we go. There's the bluff. And let's go take a look over the edge. Look at that. Tightly compressed gravels right on the inside bank on the apex of the curve. This one appears to be about 6 feet wide and about 40 feet long. Pretty close. Give you a nice little view of the river here. And as you look at this river, the water is flowing towards me. So towards my face and, out my backside and further down the river. So let's climb down there and take a look at these gravels and figure out where we're gonna dig down there. Okay, so now that I'm on the riverbank, what am I looking for? I'm looking for places where I think the gold is going to accumulate. Gold is 40 times more dense than anything in, so it's going to drop out of the water in places where there's low pressure, it's gone over rocks, or anything changes. Now, of course, the water's gone, the high water's gone for the river, so how do I know that? Well, I'm going to start behind me, and I'm going to walk the bank, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm looking for the heavier rocks. Everything in nature wants to go straight. Light, wind, water, everything, it doesn't matter. It wants to travel in a straight line. It's basic physics. And when it hits something that's in its way, it'll either go through it, around it, over, under. It's just basic physics. So what I'm looking for is places where rocks have dropped out of the water for whatever reason. There might be a big cobble there, water pressure changes for whatever reason. It could be a stick, a log, whatever, but things accumulate. As a general rule of thumb, the darker a rock is, the more dense it is. Okay? Meaning that if I have, pick this up here, if I have two different rocks in my hand, well, that's what I'm looking for right there. Okay, for example, if I have two rocks, these rocks are about the same size. This is a lighter rock, it's light colored, it's not very dense. This one is a more dense rock. It's darker colored, it's shiny, it takes the weather more, it is more dense. This rock weighs almost twice as much as this little rock does. So this one is going to fall out of the water before this one does. Get rid of that. But this one here is what I'm looking for. When I find an accumulation of these, this is where the heavies are dropping out of the river. That's a high percentage spot where gold could be dropping out of first. That's what I'm going to do. Once I find that, that's going to be my first test pan. Then I will look for other likely candidates, and that's how I pick where I dig on things. So that is your fundamental number 3, where to dig once you get down here. And once you're digging, you want to take dust pans. Like I said before, you could have gold here and no gold here. So when I identify my spot, I'm going to dig a hole here, maybe a foot beside it or 18 inches beside it. I'm going to dig another hole side by side. Put it in 2 different pans and test them. We're going to cover that in fundamental number 4. How to use a gold pan. We'll talk about the different kinds of gold pans I brought with me. We'll talk about that a little more once we get to that segment. For now, remember, water goes straight. Heavies tend to follow at the same place as gold. A darker rock is heavier than a lighter rock of the same size. So if you get an accumulation of darker rocks, that's a good place to start digging and looking, because that's where the heavies are falling out, and that is where the highest probability your gold will be falling out as well. So if you look down there, you'll see a point there sticking out. And if I draw a line from that point straight through me to the point behind me, that point behind right there, if I draw a straight line from that point to the point behind me, the first one I showed you, it goes right through this bank. I'm going to walk a path starting at the beginning of the bank to the end of the bank, and I'm looking for certain things. I'm looking for the heavier rocks. The heaviers will drop out first. All rocks are heavier. The general rule of thumb is the darker a rock is, the denser it is, so it's more likely to follow the water first and fall in places where gold will fall. So let's take a walk up the bank. So I'm walking that straight line I just talked about from behind me to the point, and I'm looking in the gravels for spaces where darker rocks and gravels accumulate. They're the denser things, like gold is very dense. So where they accumulate, there's a high probability that gold will accumulate. Here's the spot through here. You can see that these rocks are quite dark in comparison to the rocks around them. So this is my line. This is my line of what I call the line of gold travel. This is where I expect gold to be traveling as it comes down the river. It's through here. Here's a nice deposit right here, some very larger cobbles. and they are quite dark. That one in particular, these two here are quite heavy, quite dense. That's a place I'm going to start prospecting at. All right, so now we've got 4 fundamentals. Understand how the gold got here. Understand where it accumulates on a river. Learn how to river. We covered that. Step number 3, identifying where on the bank you want to dig once you get to the bank. We've covered that. So now we're going to talk about gold pans. Like I said earlier, you can have one pan here and get gold, one pan right there, get nothing. So I've identified this spot. It has a really good collection of the heavier stones I'm talking about. They're all over the place in here. These are quite dense. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to do my first gold pan test right here. And then I'm going to do a test pan right over here where there's some bigger rocks where it could have eroded and dropped in behind it. Might be a good spot to look. The bigger rocks are up here. These are the more denser rocks. So I'm going to try both spots. Okay, so let's get in here and do a good dig of these rocks, and we're going to fill both pans. That's a nice big heavy rock that dropped out of the rocks. That's a good sign. There's a nice big heavy rock here that's come out too. That's a heavy gravel too. Everything is looking favorable. It's everything I'm hoping to see as I go deeper. Everything I'm pulling out are denser rocks. So we'll fill that pan first. There you go. That gets me my test hole here. We've got nice dark sands, and then we're going to a lighter sand underneath. I like everything that's adding up here. So we'll put that one up here because we're going to wash that off with those. And we'll put the test hole number 2. These rocks are all much lighter. Seems to be a lot of clay in this. Clay is generally lighter, but don't discount it. Get in behind this rock here. There, gives me a good sampling from each hole. Next step in gold panning is to find a nice comfortable spot to actually do the panning. So we'll do that next. Alright, found myself a nice log to sit on. Take your pan and put it right in the water. This big rock that was on top of it, I've got it sitting on top of the pan. So I'm just going to give it a good rinse. And anything that's on there that's heavy will fall right down into my pan. And That's that one. Next step is, once you get your thing safe, is you want to get everything moving. And to the end, the idea is to get everything moved up to the bottom. Alright? I put it back down in the water. The gold's not going to come out of the pan, it's still in there. So now I rinse my rocks right over top of my pan. And once I got them all rinsed, I get rid of them. Now this can be done with a classifier as well, but you know, if I'm going to be doing a lot of panning in today, I'll use a classifier for the most part. I'll go with my hands. The water's a little chilly, I'll be right back. Let me get some gloves. Have my gloves. Now you get right in there and just really mix it up, really agitate it. You want to get everything moving around in your pan. I'm doing this all underwater. Let's pull this up so you can see it. I've got it at the bottom of the pan, and I'm doing this in my pan to get everything moving. Everything moves a little easier underwater. So now that we got it moving, try and get everything to the bottom of the pan, and I can lift it up and give it a good shake. If you notice, this pan's got little riffles on the front of it. Those are very helpful when later on in the panning to keep the gold in the pan. So as I take out I'll do this, I usually do this underwater, but as I take out my riffles, I take the rocks out the back of the pan. I have the pan at an angle like this. I've settled it down, so all the gold should be sitting in the bottom front of my pan. So I take the bigger rocks out, wash them against the back of my pan, pull them out. And that's the procedure for screening out the big rocks. So I'll put this back down in the water, get my angle back up, give it a good shake. And again, I'll try and get rid of some of the bigger rocks. I'm down to the smaller gravels now, so I'm pretty happy. So, you want to agitate your stuff like this. Turn your pan at an angle of about like that. Agitate it all like such. And what'll happen is all the gold goes through the stuff because it's heavier, and it'll sit right in the bottom corner of your pan, your bottom lip. You end up with all your lights on top. And this is just a lift and drop thing. It's not a scoop. The rocks will come out on their own. I'm not turning the pan. I'm matching the angle on the bottom of my pan with the water, and I'm going straight up and down. And as you can see, the lights just fold out. Once you get down a bit, give it another little shake. And at this point, I like to give a little shots, couple shots in the front here to help settle the stuff in the bottom here. I don't do that when it's settled down. As soon as the stuff is moving, give it a shot so it moves it while it's all moving. And the same thing. It'll take out the bigger gravels. Okay. Now I've got the bigger rocks out of the pan, and we're down to the nitty gritty. And as you look at my pan, you can see that everything that's in here is very dark. So I'll take out my gloves now, get that out of there, and I'm going to utilize my riffles. I'm going to take it, put about an inch of water over my pan, my water, and then I agitate it like this. Get it going, like so, and then back and forth. And as it agitates, give it a couple shots, and again, the gold will settle underneath. And now I only go that far into the water in my pan. One time over and then back over. and the gold will settle down on the bristles. So now that I've got it reasonably down to there, I will, just by using a back and forth action like this, I can move the lights to the back of my pan and we'll expose any level. What I'm hoping to find here is some black sands, which I'm starting to see already here. I've got black sands, I'm into the black sands. Open them up, and I'm seeing about 10 flakes in there. Not bad, but around here on the North Saskatchewan River, I'm usually looking for around 30 flakes before I even think about working this spot. So, the procedure is the same, no matter what kind of pan you're using. We'll grab the other one, the other test hole now, and see how we did. So, same procedure, drop it down in the water, clean my rocks. This one's got a lot of clay in it, so you want to get in there and you want to crush up that clay. Takes time. And you start working with clay. If you lay your pan just inside the water like this, it'll kind of float, and that helps. Just keep adding water, because the clay, the dirt from the clay is very light, so it'll come right out. See, this is interesting. I just had a little clump of clay, but when I cleaned it out, there's a very dense black rock in the middle of that clay, so that's interesting. But if nothing else, if you don't get any kind of gold, you get a nice day on the river, which is beautiful. And of course, Lana's over there panning away, and don't tell her I said this, but she's going to do better than I do today. She always does. Catches all the gold, catches all the fish. I don't know what to tell you. Fishing line, that's always fun. We'll get that out of the river. So this pan here has bigger riffles than the other one does. Matter of taste, really. I like the other one more, but that it has a bigger bottom than it has bigger riffles. But you know, there are prospectors that swear by the Garrett Super Sleuth because it has such big ripples and it's a big bottom. I don't have one. Maybe I'll look at getting one day. That's a nice heavy rock. Now that I've got that going on this side, Bring it around to the other side. And we'll just kind of clean out some of these rocks with these smaller riffles. And we'll pan that back, see what's in there. Oh, well, there we go. This pan, I'll try and give you some shots of this, but the smaller flakes don't really pick up, especially when there's small amounts of them. But there are yeah, there's a good 25 flake specks in this pan. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about pans a little bit. There's lots of pans on the market. It really doesn't matter that much. If you go back and watch a video I put out a week ago, I had nothing with me but a $10 pan. I mean, this blue one's $30. This one's about $25. This one's about $15. I think it was about $35 for this metal one. The old timers used to use those. But, you know, I keep it around just more for nostalgic. I do a little bit of panning with it. I really like the big flat bottom on this, especially if I'm going after flour gold. But the pan really doesn't matter that much. You know, go out and spend $10 on a pan and get down to the river and have some good time. Find a couple of flakes of gold and maybe you'll catch the bug too. Be careful though, because once it gets you, it's got you.